I need to tell someone what I did, and you're going to think I'm terrible. But there's something about trying to help the man you love that nobody understands until they're watching him fall apart right in front of them. Everyone thinks my boyfriend Jake is the victim here, and maybe he is, but I'm the one who said the words that made him go completely silent. Not just quiet, silent, like I don't exist anymore. And the worst part, I still don't know if I was wrong. If I don't tell this story, you'll never understand why I'm sitting here 3 weeks later, texting him every day and getting nothing back. But once you know what I know, once you see what I was dealing with, you'll understand why those 5 words came out of my mouth. Or at least I hope you will. I'm going to tell you everything, including the thing I said to him right before he walked away from me in that parking lot. And the part that makes me look worst. I'm saving that for later because you need to understand what our relationship was like first. You need to know what I was trying to save him from. Jake and I had been together for 2 years when this happened. 2 good years mostly. We met at a friend's barbecue where I was immediately drawn to how quiet he was in a group. Not shy exactly, just observant. He'd lean against the fence with a beer, watching everyone else play cornhole and tell loud stories, and he'd smile at the right moments but never jump in. I liked that about him. I dated enough guys who needed to be the center of attention, who made every conversation about them. Jake felt like a relief. Our first few months were easy in that way new relationships are when you're both still showing your best selves. He had a job doing IT work for a medical supply company. Nothing glamorous but stable. He lived in a decent apartment. He was close with his mom and sister. He remembered little things I mentioned, like how I preferred text messages in the morning instead of calls because I needed time to wake up. He was thoughtful, considerate, maybe a little too much in his own head sometimes, but aren't we all? The first time I noticed something off was about 6 months in. We were supposed to meet for dinner after his work and he texted me an hour before to cancel. Said he had a headache. I told him no problem, feel better. Then it happened again the next week. And the week after that, always headaches, or he was tired or he just wasn't feeling up to it. When we did see each other, he seemed fine, so I figured he was just stressed about work. People get stressed. That's normal. But then he started talking about his job more. Not in an excited way, in a heavy way. He'd mention his boss, this guy named Derek, and how Derek would call him into his office over tiny mistakes. How Derek CC'd the whole team on emails pointing out what Jake did wrong. How the office culture was toxic and everyone was just trying to avoid being the next target. I listened. I said the right things. That sounds really hard, and your boss sounds like a jerk. Basic supportive girlfriend stuff. The thing was, after a few months of this, the complaints started to feel like they were taking over our time together. We'd go out to dinner and I'd ask about his day, and he'd launch into a 20-minute story about a meeting where Derek criticized his presentation. Or we'd be watching a movie and he'd suddenly pause it to tell me about an email exchange that upset him. I started to feel like I was his therapist instead of his girlfriend, and I didn't know how to say that without sounding selfish. I want to be clear about something because this matters. I'm not one of those people who thinks you should never talk about problems. I'm not some toxic positivity person who tells everyone to just smile through their pain. I believe in being real with the people you love. But there's a difference between sharing your struggles and drowning someone in them. And by month 10, I was starting to feel like I couldn't breathe. My friends started to notice. We'd make plans for a double date and Jake would cancel last minute because he wasn't up for it. My best friend Melissa finally asked me if everything was okay with him. I defended him immediately. Said he was just going through a rough patch at work, that he'd be fine once things settled down. But things never settled down. There was always another crisis, another reason why Derek was making his life miserable, another day where he came home too exhausted to do anything but lie on the couch. I suggested therapy around the 1-year mark. I tried to be gentle about it. I told him I'd been thinking about going myself because work had been stressful and maybe we could both find someone to talk to. He shut down immediately. Said therapy was expensive and wouldn't help anyway because the problem wasn't in his head, it was his actual job. Fair enough, I thought, so I suggested he look for a new job. That's when things got complicated. Because Jake had reasons why he couldn't look for a new job. The job market was bad, he didn't have the right certifications. This company had good benefits. He'd been there 3 years and didn't want to start over somewhere new. Every solution I offered hit a wall of reasons why it wouldn't work. And I started to realize that maybe Jake didn't want solutions. Maybe he wanted to stay in the problem. I know that sounds harsh. I know it does. But try to put yourself in my position. Imagine listening to someone you love complain about the same thing for months, offering every piece of advice and support you have, and watching them reject all of it while continuing to be miserable. It's exhausting. It makes you feel helpless and frustrated and like you're failing at being supportive all at the same time. By month 15, our relationship had changed. We saw each other less because he was always too tired. When we did see each other, the conversation always circled back to his job. Our sex life had basically died, not completely but enough that I noticed. He stopped planning dates or surprises. He forgot my birthday, then felt terrible about it and cried, which somehow made me feel like I had to comfort him about forgetting my birthday. The dynamic had shifted in a way I couldn't quite name but felt constantly. My mom asked me once during this period if I was happy. We were having lunch, just the two of us, and she said it casually while cutting her salad. "Are you happy with Jake?" I told her yes, of course I was, we were just going through a stressful time. She gave me this look, this knowing, motherly look, and said, "You know you're allowed to expect more than just being someone's emotional support animal, right?" I laughed it off, but the comment stuck with me. Was that what I'd become? I tried to talk to Jake about it. I really did try. I sat him down one night at his apartment and said we needed to discuss how much his job stress was affecting our relationship. He immediately got defensive, said I didn't understand how hard things were for him, said I had a cushy job with a nice boss and couldn't relate to what he was dealing with, said he needed support from his girlfriend, not criticism. And the thing was, he wasn't entirely wrong. My job was easier. My boss was nice. But that didn't mean I wasn't trying to support him. It didn't mean I deserved to be snapped at for bringing up a legitimate concern. We didn't resolve anything that night. He apologized later for getting defensive, but nothing changed. The pattern continued. Complaints, cancellations, exhaustion, sadness. I started to dread our conversations because I knew where they'd end up. I started to feel guilty for being happy about things in my own life because it felt like rubbing it in his face. When I got a promotion at work, I almost didn't tell him because I didn't want to deal with how it would make him feel about his own job situation. That's when I knew something had to change. Because I was dimming my own light to make his darkness feel less obvious, and that's not what love is supposed to be. Around month 18, things got worse. Jake's company did layoffs, and while he didn't lose his job, several of his coworkers did. This sent him into an even deeper spiral. He was convinced he'd be next. Every day was filled with anxiety about whether this would be his last day. He'd text me throughout the workday with updates on his paranoia. Derek walked past my desk without saying hi. "I think I'm done. Just got left off an email chain. They're definitely firing me soon." Why would they keep me when I'm the least experienced person on the team? I tried to be there for him. I'd respond to the text with reassurance. "You're good at your job. They're not firing you." Derek's just a jerk to everyone. But it was like pouring water into a cup with a hole in the bottom. Nothing I said made a difference. The anxiety just kept leaking out all over both of us. He didn't get fired. Weeks went by, then months, and he still had his job. But instead of being relieved, he just found new things to worry about. New ways Derek was terrible. New reasons the job was unbearable. And I started to feel something I'm ashamed to admit. I started to feel angry. Not at his situation, not at Derek or the company or the stress of modern employment. I was angry at Jake, at his passivity, at his refusal to do anything to change his circumstances, at how he turned our entire relationship into a support group for his misery while doing nothing to address the source of it. And the angrier I got, the more guilty I felt, because what kind of person gets mad at their partner for struggling? Melissa told me I should break up with him. We were having wine at her place and I was venting about another canceled date and she just said it flat out. "Why are you still with him? He sounds depressed and he's dragging you down with him." I got defensive immediately. He wasn't dragging me down. He was going through a hard time. You don't leave someone just because things get difficult. She backed off, but I could tell she didn't agree. She thought I was wasting my time on someone who didn't want to help himself. Maybe she was right, I don't know. But I loved him, or I loved who he used to be, or I loved who I thought he could be again once he got through this. Love's complicated like that. You can't just turn it off because someone's going through a rough patch, even if the rough patch lasts for over a year. The incident happened on a Saturday. We'd made plans to go hiking, something I'd suggested because I thought getting outside and active might help his mood. He'd agreed, which felt like a small victory. I was actually looking forward to it. A whole day away from screens and work talk and stress, just us in nature and maybe a chance to reconnect. He picked me up late, not super late but 20 minutes late, which meant we'd hit traffic. Already I could feel my frustration building, but I didn't say anything. He seemed tense in the car. I asked what was wrong and he said nothing, but I knew better by then. I let it sit for a few minutes while we drove and then it came out. Derek had emailed him at 9 p.m. the night before about a project that was due Monday. Jake had seen it this morning and now he was stressed about how he was going to get it done. He was talking about maybe skipping the hike to work on it. I felt something snap inside me. "You're going to cancel our plans because of an email," I said, trying to keep my voice level. "It's not just an email, it's a whole project that he's expecting done first thing Monday," Jake said. "And you can't work on it tomorrow, you have to do it today during our plans that we made a week ago." He got quiet. That's what he did when he felt attacked. He'd just go silent and make me feel like the bad guy for being upset. "I'm just stressed about it," he finally said. "I can't enjoy the hike if I'm thinking about work the whole time." Jake, you're always thinking about work. You're always stressed about something. At what point do you just decide to live your life anyway? It's not that simple. It actually is that simple. You choose to let this job control every aspect of your life. You choose to prioritize Derek's bullshit over our relationship. You choose to be miserable. I could see his jaw tight. You don't get it. You're right, I don't get it. I don't get why you stay at a job that makes you this unhappy. I don't get why you won't look for something else or go to therapy or do literally anything to make your situation better. You just complain about it constantly and expect me to sit here and absorb it all while you do nothing to change. We drove in silence for a few minutes. I knew I'd gone too far, but I also felt relieved to have finally said it. The truth had been building up in me for months and now it was out. So I'm not allowed to talk to you about my problems, he said quietly. That's not what I said. You can talk to me about your problems. But it's been a year and a half of the same problem, Jake. Some point talking about it isn't enough, you have to do something. I am doing something, I'm surviving, I'm showing up every day and getting through it. Just because I'm not fixing everything instantly doesn't mean I'm doing nothing. He had a point, I guess, but it didn't feel like surviving. It felt like drowning and pulling me down with him. We did end up going on the hike, but the mood was ruined. We barely talked. When we did, it was surface-level stuff. The weather, the trail, nothing real. I kept thinking about what Melissa had said. Why was I still in this relationship? What was I getting out of it anymore? That night we went back to his place. I thought maybe we could talk through what had happened in the car, actually communicate for once. But instead, he just started up again about the project. How much work it was going to be. How Derek would probably hate it no matter what he did. How unfair it was to assign something on a Friday night. I was sitting on his couch watching him pace around the kitchen while he talked, and I felt this wave of exhaustion. Not physical exhaustion, but soul-level tiredness. I was tired of this. Tired of him. Tired of being the audience for his misery. Do you hear yourself? I said, interrupting him mid-sentence. He stopped packing. What? Do you hear how much you complain about everything all the time? I'm not complaining, I'm venting. There's a difference. There's really not when it's constant. Not when it's the only thing we ever talk about. What do you want me to do? Just pretend everything's fine? I want you to either do something about it or accept it, one or the other, but this middle ground where you're miserable and making me miserable but refusing to change anything, I can't do it anymore. He stared at me. I could see hurt in his eyes, but also something else. Anger maybe, or defiance. You know what I think, he said. I think you can't handle that I'm not perfect. I think you want a boyfriend who has his shit together all the time and never struggles with anything. Real life isn't like that. People have problems, jobs are hard, not everyone can just be happy all the time like you. That's not fair. I'm not asking you to be happy all the time. I'm asking you to try, to do something, anything. Apply for one other job, go to one therapy session, set one boundary with your boss. Just show me you're trying to make things better instead of just accepting that this is how it's going to be forever. I am trying, you just don't see it. Then help me see it. Tell me what you're doing. Show me something that indicates you're taking steps to improve your situation. He couldn't or wouldn't. He just stood there looking at me like I was being unfair, like I was the problem. And that's when I said it. The thing I came here to confess. Maybe the issue is that you complain too much. Real men don't complain, they just handle their shit. I saw it hit him, watched his face change from defensive to something else, something shut down. He didn't yell or argue back. He just nodded slowly, grabbed his keys and said, I think you should go. Jake, I didn't mean please leave. I tried to apologize, told him I was frustrated and said something stupid. But he wouldn't engage, just held the door open and waited for me to walk through it. So I did. That was 3 weeks ago. I've texted him probably 30 times since then, called even more, sent a long apology message explaining that I was wrong to say what I said, that I was just overwhelmed and lashed out. Nothing, complete radio silence. His read receipts are on, so I know he's seeing my messages. He's just choosing not to respond. It's like I don't exist to him anymore. The worst part is what I found out a week after our fight. I was stalking his social media. I'm not proud of it, but I needed to see if he was okay, and I saw that he'd posted something on LinkedIn. A post about starting a new position at a different company. He got a new job, had been interviewing for it apparently for weeks, maybe even months, and he never told me. Which means he was trying. He was taking steps to change his situation. And I just couldn't see it because I was so focused on how his struggles were affecting me. But here's the thing I keep coming back to, the thing that makes me feel like maybe I wasn't entirely wrong. He never told me. He was going through a job search, something huge and stressful and hopeful, and he kept it from me. What does that say about our relationship? What does it say about how much he trusted me or valued my support? My friends are split on this. Melissa thinks I did nothing wrong, that I was honest about my feelings and he couldn't handle it. My other friend Tara thinks I was cruel and dismissive of his struggles. That real men don't complain thing is hanging around my neck like an albatross. I know it was a shitty thing to say. I know it played into toxic masculinity and probably made him feel like he couldn't be vulnerable with me. But I also know I didn't mean it the way it sounded. I just wanted him to do something instead of just talking about how bad everything was. I guess what I'm trying to figure out is whether I destroyed something good or escaped something that was already dying. Whether I'm the villain or just someone who reached her breaking point. Whether those 5 words revealed something terrible about me or just revealed the truth that I was tired of being his emotional dumpster. I still love him. That's the fucked up part. I see his photo come up on my phone and my heart does that stupid flutter thing. I want to talk to him. Want to know if the new job is better, want to hear his voice even if it's just him complaining about something. But wanting someone doesn't mean you should be with them. Sometimes love isn't enough to fix what's broken. My mom asked me again last week if I was happy. We were on the phone and she just casually dropped it in. I told her I was fine. She said, fine isn't happy. And she's right. I wasn't happy at the end of that relationship, but I'm not happy now either. I'm just alone with the knowledge that I might have broken something that could have been fixed if I'd just been more patient, or if I'd communicated better, or if I'd said anything other than those 5 words. Here's what nobody tells you about being in a relationship with someone who's struggling, you drown too. Not always, not immediately, but gradually. Their problems become your problems. Their bad moods become your bad moods. Their inability to see a way out becomes your reality too. And at some point, you have to decide whether to keep drowning with them or swim to shore. I swam. And now he's gone, and I'm sitting here wondering if he would have thrown me a life raft if I just waited a little longer. The thing I haven't told anyone, not Melissa, not Tara, not my mom, is that I looked up his new company. I know where he works now. I know it's a bigger firm with better pay and benefits. I drove past the building last week. I don't know what I was hoping to see. Maybe him walking out looking happier. Maybe just confirmation that he existed, that he was real and okay and moving forward without me. I didn't see him. But I sat in my car in that parking lot for 20 minutes staring at the entrance, and I realized something. I wasn't there because I wanted him back. I was there because I needed to know that my suffering had a purpose. That pushing him away, whether I meant to or not, had somehow helped him move forward. That maybe being cruel had been kind in some twisted way. But I don't know if that's true. I don't know if he got that job because I pushed him or in spite of me. I don't know if my comment was the wake-up call he needed or just the final insult that made him shut me out forever. I don't know if real men don't complain was the worst thing I could have said or just the truth he didn't want to hear. What I do know is this: he stopped talking to me entirely. Not gradually, not with a fade out. One minute I was his girlfriend of 2 years, and the next minute I was nothing. A ghost. Someone who sends messages into the void and gets nothing back. And maybe I deserve that. Maybe that's what happens when you tell someone who's struggling that they're not handling it the right way. Maybe silence is what you get when you prioritize your own comfort over someone else's pain. But I also think, and this is the part that makes me feel like maybe I'm not crazy, that he was using me. Not in a malicious way, but using me nonetheless. As a sounding board, a therapist, an emotional support system that required nothing from him in return. And when I asked for something back, for effort, for change, for a relationship that wasn't just me propping him up, he had nothing to give. So he walked away, or maybe I pushed him away. I honestly can't tell anymore. The story changes depending on what day you ask me. Some days I'm the villain who couldn't support her partner through hard times. Other days I'm the hero who stood up for herself and set a boundary. Most days I'm both. A person who loved someone and failed them and was failed by them all at once. I typed out another text to him this morning. I saw you got a new job. I'm really proud of you. I'm sorry I wasn't more supportive when you needed it. I hope you're happy. I've been staring at it for hours, my thumb hovering over the send button. Part of me thinks sending it will give me closure. The other part knows he won't respond, and that will hurt worse than the silence I already have. I don't know if I'll send it. I don't know if it matters. 3 weeks feels like both forever and no time at all. Long enough that I should be over it, short enough that I'm not. Long enough that he's clearly moved on, short enough that maybe he hasn't. The truth is, I'm telling you all of this because I need to know if I'm the asshole here. I need someone to read this story and tell me whether I was right or wrong. Whether real men don't complain was unforgivable or understandable. Whether I should keep trying to reach him or accept that some silences are permanent. But I think I'm afraid that the answer is both, that I was both right and wrong, that the relationship was both worth saving and already gone, that he both needed to hear hard truths and deserved more gentleness, that I both loved him enough and not in the right way. I deleted the text, didn't send it. Because maybe the lesson here isn't about whether I was right or wrong. Maybe it's about accepting that I said something I can't take back and he made a choice I can't change. Maybe it's about living with the consequence of my own words, even if I didn't mean them the way they landed. Real men don't complain, that's what I said. What I meant was I can't hold both of us up anymore. What he heard was you're not man enough for me. And now he's gone and I'm here and I still don't know which one of those truths matters more. I just know that silence is louder than I ever expected it to be.